Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor immediately after leaving the gym. I'm actually going to record this weekend's episode about Green Day later. I got a lot of stuff to do. It's Saturday morning. I'll record at some point over the weekend. But while I was at the gym, I came up with the best Green Day joke ever. What's the difference between me and the drummer from Green Day? He's Trey Cool, and I am Trey Cold. You can stop laughing. Let's get to the real part of the video where I'm hopefully inside with less goofy hair. That's much better. Warm up by the fire. So let's get to Green Day. Let me tell you a little bit about my history with them. Something I like to do on this channel. You know, this channel is a way for me to learn about new music, but also to revisit music that I've dismissed, perhaps unfairly. Now, I am what I would call a hipster hater of Green Day. By that, I mean I hated them before it was cool. My friend Ted, the guy who I've talked about on this channel, you know, loved emo and Pedro the Lion and all the stuff that I've reviewed, he got Dookie very early on, and he played it for me, and I was just kind of like, I was a hipster cool guy who only liked real punk. I don't like this pop punk stuff. So I just sort of ignored it. And then, like, even before they hit it nationally, I lived in Boston, and they played a very famous show on the Esplanade in Boston, a free concert that ended in like this crazy riot. I had friends who went, I had friends who invited me to go, and I was just like, I don't know, I don't like that pop punk stuff. So really, I've disliked them for a very long time. Except that isn't entirely true. I mean, I'm not a complete idiot. Within like a year after Dookie coming out, I heard the songs enough on the radio to recognize, like, they aren't a total joke. They aren't terrible. Years would go on. I despised that graduation song about, turn another page in the book, whatever that song is. But I was able to recognize that American Idiot was probably a great album. My nephew loved it. He would play it for me. And I would hear their songs from time to time. But the fact remains, I have never in my entire life sat down and decided I am going to listen to a Green Day album. So I did that this weekend for the first time in my life. Now, if you're a big Green Day fan, I don't want you to take this as a big insult, right? It's not really an insult. It's just when they came out, it's like, it's not for me. Their name is a pot reference, which I didn't really care for. I even saw Billy Joe Armstrong at a movie theater in Oakland, like in the early 2000s, like I recognized him, So I managed to like live this musical life without ever really taking them seriously. So here we are with this album, The Father of All Mother Effers. The title is funny, the cover is interesting. It's basically an obscured version of the American Idiot cover with like a unicorn vomiting. I think that's intentional. Like the unicorn imagery is sort of intentionally cheesy, intentionally poppy, and the idea of it puking is sort of like faux rebellion. And I think a lot of this album is about the nature of faux rebellion and maybe a reaction to American Idiot. When I saw Green Day was coming out with an album, I thought, well, American Idiot is generally considered to be the definitive album on the Bush era, right? Like, this is the album that talks about the way we feel and our frustration and anger and shame and all that. So I was wondering, like, is this going to be the Trump album of Green Day? I am happy to report it is not. It is not a 26-minute diatribe against Donald Trump, which I think would be exceedingly boring and superfluous. Instead, it's much more of a take on, I believe, Billy Joe Armstrong himself and about the troubles that he's going through. There are brief moments of politics in here, but very, very brief. Now, when the album started, I actually wasn't really sure if it even was Green Day. What I associate with Green Day is, the power punk, good bass lines and driving guitars and some guy singing like this, some guy... Instead, the singing is very kind of subtle. The singing is like very poppy. It actually reminded me, not poppy like the weird faux Japanese pop star I reviewed last week. I mean like very pop. To the point where it actually reminded me most of The Hives. That band from Sweden from the 2000s that made like really good upbeat rock and roll songs that certainly weren't punk. This album doesn't feel punk or even pop punk at all. So the album starts off with this, and it almost has like a Jimi Hendrix feeling, like the song Fire, like da-da-da-da. But a great bass line, this interesting new style of vocals. And then we get to the track Ready No, fire, ready, aim. And this is where I realized two words that haven't been in my head in a long time popped up in terms of music. And those words are jock jams. Now, Jock Jams was a series of CDs that came out in the 1990s that collected all the music that was played at stadiums. You know, da-na-na-na-na, woo, da-na-na-na-na, written by a pedophile, and, you know, hey, ho, let's go. All the songs that you associate with being in a gym or in a stadium were all kind of collected. And it's funny because the term became sort of a pejorative. But I don't think it should be. It's not the same thing as the thing I talked about last week, the Jack Daniel's Honey rock and roll, kind of like faux blues. Like, jock jams have their own kind of vibe, and I think it's actually good. It's just driving rock and roll that you can sort of sing along to, and you feel kind of dumb, but also there's sort of a collective feeling to it. And so I really felt that with a lot of this album. Like, well-written jock jams. Tracks that would sound good at a San Jose Sharks hockey game. So I'm asthmatic, so the fire's not a great plan. The next track is called Oh Yeah, and this is a great example of this style. There's sort of like Elvis Costello style keyboards going on here, a beautiful pre-chorus, and then leads up to a very jock jam chorus. Oh yeah, I mean, that's like the ultimate jock jam feel. Yay, the Sharks scored a goal. If there is any political meaning in this album, it's sort of hidden in little lines here or there. My favorite lyric in the whole album is burning books in a bulletproof backpack. I think Green Day might have done it. They might have actually written a very efficient line about Trump's America. Burning books in a bulletproof backpack. You know, it's about like the anti-intellectual strain in our country. It's about our paranoia. It's about our need for protection from firearms. Excellent lyric. In the middle of this kind of jock jammy, oh yeah, feeling. Meet Me on the Roof is the next track. It's nice. The songs are very short. There's a lot of songs. They're very short. It's a short album. It's a good album. Very punchy, quite strong. Meet Me on the Roof is like this Weezer-ish style song. I would say a lot of this feels like the Hives and Weezer kind of mixed together with what I associate with Green Day. But it has kind of like a lot of like la-la-las, and it's not the strongest. It then leads into one of the two strongest tracks on the album, I Was a Teenager. I played this for my daughter who likes Green Day, and first of all, she didn't even know it was Green Day because the singing is so different. But this track, she's like, this is really sad. This is really sad, saying that he is a teenager. And I tried to explain that it's like a play on I was a teenage werewolf, I was a teenage zombie. But it's really nice, heartfelt lyrics that feel kind of funny and bitter and talking about his youth. And like, he doesn't even rhyme. I mean, he rhymes piss and vinegar and teenager, but beyond that, he's just like, who's holding drugs? I hate to tell you this. So it's kind of like a loser anthem, which maybe just because I'm of the same generation as Green Day, loser anthems used to be a big thing when I was growing up. And I think the world needs more loser anthems. I think the best way to actually fight Trumpism is to embrace being a loser again. A really very, very catchy, well-written song, almost Ramones-ish, again, in that whole kind of jock jams feeling. And it's odd because it uses like some of the conventions of pop punk that I find tiring, and of pop music, like repetition of chorus too much, but they managed to make it work. Stab You in the Heart is terrible. It's a bad song. I hate to tell you, Green Day fans, it's a bad song. It's just the Shimmy Shimmy Shake, popularized by the Beatles, written by Little Richard. I don't know who wrote the Shimmy Shimmy Shake, but Stab You in the Heart, woo! Stab You. It's just a plagiarism. It's just bad. It's not edgy. It's not funny. It's not cool. F-. I apologize. But that's the only real low point on the album. The next track, Sugar Youth, gets to a little bit more of the political sense, but it's more of a criticism of our need for sweet things and liking things. The vocals are finally Billy Joe-esque in here. The lyrics are about needing sugar, needing things to be sweet, but again, I think that's sort of metaphorical about our national addiction to pleasure. And then, probably the highlight of the album, Junkies on a High. So this is almost from a different album. Like it feels like it's maybe a little bit trying to cash in on some trap instrumentals, not like strong trap, but like the sparseness of trap. It's like, you know, better drumming and everything. And it's about sort of like watching the world burn passively. And it seems to be one of the themes of this album is just sort of Billy Joe confronting his own passivity. But also, it's a lot about being a rock star. And he mentions being that he might be the next one to go. And he's singing about being a junkie. So I don't know. Does Billy Joe have problems with heroin? I would assume so. I would assume that this is kind of like the previous song, Sugar Youth, all about like the need for pleasure, but a little bit deeper. And there's a couple of musical hints about what the song is really about. Because at one point in the song, these two notes are played. Sorry, I didn't realize I had my guitar right there. At one point during the song, these two notes are played. You should know what those two notes are. These are two of the best notes of rock and roll history. I'll play them again. So those are the notes from Smells Like Teen Spirit. And just once, these notes are played. But then that allowed me to sort of do a reverse archaeology on the song and realize that the whole song is based on do, 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 do. It's a slightly altered play on the same chords that are used in Smells Like Teen Spirit. So I think it's almost a song where he's sort of conversing with Cobain's ghost and talking about being a junkie and talking about being a rock and roll burnout and sort of wrapping those things in together. I could be wrong. Maybe that's not what the song's about. But I'm pretty sure I'm right. At least on some level, this song is about Kurt Cobain and Billy Joe Armstrong and the ways they're similar and the ways they're different and their struggles with heroin. Also kind of reminds me a little bit of the track Borrowed Tune by Neil Young. So Neil Young took Sympathy for the Devil and just played it on piano. And he directly references the fact that he stole the chord progression from the Rolling Stones. Just by hearing those two notes makes you think that Billy Joe is very consciously copying Nirvana. The last couple tracks are fine. Take the Money and Crawl, vaguely anti-capitalistic, anti-greed song. And then it ends with almost like a summertime blues style track called Graffitia. In general, I was very pleased to listen to this. I listened to it more than once on purpose. I like it. In particular, Junkies on a High is an excellent track. And I was a teenager. I would say those are the best examples. Like the Junkies on a High is maybe they're more aspirational, trying to do something bigger, maybe similar to what they were trying to do with American Idiot. Not that I've ever listened to it, but I've heard it, you know, in the ether. And then I was a teenager is maybe a little bit more of this consciously not pop punk, but just like rock pop that they were trying to go for. So there you go. Until hopefully you've been able to watch this video. You've probably been laughing so hard at the joke that started it off. But there you go. Until next time, for the fire, for the warmth, for the coldness, and for Kurt Cobain, there's the camera.